these restrictions that we have placed are reasonable. It's the court which will have to decide whether the restrictions which have been imposed by the executive or the legislature are reasonable or not. And they are to be reasonable and only for these limited purposes, which I just read out. Here. Security of the state, friendly relations with foreign states, public order, decency, morality, on relation to contempt of court, defamation or incitement. If it comes under that and the government can successfully argue that the restriction they have made is reasonable in the interest of any one of those, and if the court accepts it, then of course what the press has done would be found to be indictable. Now this is the importance of looking at the courts and media, as today's discussion calls us to do, to see how under the present dispensation, how media is protected, how its freedom to express what would wish to express is protected in the event of state wanting to restrict it by taking various forms of penal action. Now, some indications are there the way that the government is not happy with things that are expressed in the press, because there's now, of course, another branch of the press which they're most concerned about, which is social media. Things that are coming on social media seems to worry them a lot, and they're just bringing in different laws, and they have brought in laws to provide for fairly drastic punishments for people who they say have violated what they would consider to be prohibitions against anti-state or publications. So these are yet to come to court, the things that they would seek to punish, but the state is very sensitive about what is published, not only in the press as they have always been, what is there on television and what is there in the social media. Now, in television, the form that is done is now you see, the kind of controls that are exercised on press or media, pre-censorship or post-censorship. Pre-censorship is where you can prevent certain things being published. Now with newspapers, pre-censorship is not yet in practiced. But in the case of television, this has become very much the case, because as I'm sure you all know, and I'm sure TV people, I think, publicly will acknowledge, that they're told that you cannot ask these people to come on your programs. So in other words, people are blacklisted. So that's pre-censorship. You just allow some people not to be heard. Now on social media, it is now remains to be seen what forms of censorship will be exercised. The issue for us to consider is, at the present moment, to what extent our courts, the judiciary, to what extent the judiciary would be able to provide protection. Now, initially a prosecution is started in the magistrates' courts. There, again, this question of independence of the magistracy is a very current issue, because the judgments of the highest court have said that the lower courts would be entirely subject to the exclusive oversight of their work by the Supreme Judiciary, the highest judiciary. That's been laid down in a judgment. But to give effect to this, it has also been said that arrangements must be made so that appointment, transfer, discipline of lower court judges and magistrates would be vested in the Supreme Court. Now that is law. There is no question. Has been law laid down by the highest court. It's been gone on review and it has been reaffirmed on review. So it's unquestionably the law. But the fact of the matter is that this is not being implemented. A year has gone by, 2 years have gone by, and if you want to understand why, there's a certain amount of, what should we say, uncomfortable exchanges between between the head of the executive and the head of the judiciary, which appears every day in the press, with the law minister saying, we're trying to say, well, we should talk about it, discuss it, and then I think the Chief Justice also said, yes, we should talk about it. And so on that issue, we can say, let's hope that this can be resolved through a frank exchange of what the problems are. I mean, one of the problems is appointments can't be made to the lower court because the Chief Justice, or the court's view, the judiciary's view is, look, you cannot make appointments without getting our consent. And that's provided. That's what this judgment, that's what the Constitution says, and that's what the judgment says, that any appointments now to any level of the judiciary must be with the consent of the Supreme Court. This is where the Law Ministry tried once or twice to make appointments, but this was held by the Supreme Court not to be effective, saying, look, the Constitution and the interpretation that is now final and binding interpretation says you have to get these matters done with the consent of the Supreme Court. If you don't do it, you can't appoint. Executive response is, all right, then we will not appoint. Hence, the large numbers of vacancies, you'll see this in the press every day. There's a court here functioning with about 5 vacancies, 10 vacancies, as a result of which the cases keep on accumulating. And this is a concern of everybody, that the backlog of 10,000, 20,000 cases because 5 judges or 10 judges are missing out of half the number of the approved numbers of judges. Half only have been in place, are in place. So this is one of the current crises that is referred to in the statements that you read from coming on the judiciary, that the independent judiciary requires that appointments be made with the Supreme Court's concurrence, but the executive will not make appointments and will not seek concurrence. So there's a complete stalemate. And the resolution of that, at least
but that freedom has certain limits, as Dr. Hossain has already mentioned, that this is subject to certain restrictions. But those restrictions are provided by law and not on the basis of an exercise of arbitral or discretionary powers. Now, at the same time, when we look into the issues related to contempt, and this is where we go into very treacherous slopes, and especially those of us in the legal business, we tend to find that this is better not to comment on, just not to be caught on the other side of the fence. And so this particular concept of contempt, to my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, to my understanding, this particular concept is discretionary. Who decides what is contempt? How far? Who decides whether I have overstepped the line? And now, as long as the contempt of courts provisions go, there is vagueness about the whole issue of contempt, and this can actually create a kind of undue fear, because on one hand, if we consider ourselves to support the notion of open justice, then, and at the same time, if we want to restrict the media's access to report to it, we are at the same time are at cross purposes, if I may say that. So these are things that I feel is relevant to this discussion. And a key issue which is time and again has cropped up is when there had been research on the media, like you remember that we had research done on public perception surveys done on the judiciary, and the judiciary was up in arms to challenge the findings of those results of those surveys and so on. Now this is, of course, these surveys are to promote more openness, transparency and accountability of the judiciary itself. But if we tend to have this mindset of denial, then this might not actually help in making an efficient and predictable judiciary. So these are issues that I feel is relevant to the discussion that we have already had. And then of course there's a question of whether this has been the question of media freedom. Media freedom these days is also sometimes taken out of its context, because there are different kind of corporatist interests that we are dealing with. Corporatist interests are driving media interests. Now that might not be quite useful for a state to actually deliver open justice, because if we have very specific corporatist agenda on reporting on the judiciary and so on. Or in other words, it's like having two set of trials. One trial is taking place in the media, and another one is taking place in the judiciary. But as far as my understanding goes, is that a matter which is sub judice, which is being considered by a court, is something that we should not be reporting on. But there are a few instances that I can refer to. For example, if someone is arrested by police and he is paraded with a little big sign in his chest which says he is a robber or a terrorist. Now, how does this really fit in with our system of justice? We cannot actually condemn someone. We can always say an accused, but we cannot condemn someone until and unless a competent court has sentenced him for a particular offense. Now these issues are at play, and at this time things tend to remain very blurry, if you like. So one of the ways that we can actually try to resolve this issue, to strike a balance between the freedom of the media and the independence of the judiciary, could very well be to go into the depths of these issues, which in many other countries have already been done through the law commissions. And the law commissions could actually look into the existing laws, and both relevant for the media as well as the judiciary, to see how these can interact better and can have a better balance. For in one sense, we have more efficient justice, but at the other hand, we also have the freedom that the media needs. And before I conclude, I think the topic could be played the other way around as well. You can have an independent media, and we might want to have a free judiciary. So that's another way of looking at it, because the media, as it seems these days, is not really independent, and as Sal has very rightly pointed out, there has been push and pull factors from the government. But is it only limited to the government, which is trying to play around with the media? I mean, in these days of market economies, and we tend to see that there are rise of large corporate interests who can very well actually manipulate the media and create conflicts with state institutions, whereby they get the opportunity to weaken both. And that is something that this society need to carefully consider before falling into a trap of that nature. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Abu Zaid Mohammed. A very interesting and focused discussion. As Professor Mohammed rightly pointed out, that the reasonable restriction provision in the Constitution is used to try and curb the remit of the press. And as he said, it's not just the authorities. Sometimes it's business conglomerates who want to control the voice of the media. And the reasonable restrictions are applied through various legal means. And one of the provisions, one of the laws that have been used again and again in the last few years is, as Professor Mohammed pointed out, is Section 57 of the ICT Act. Now that act is in the news once again because last week the Law Ministry said that it would be repealed and replaced with the Digital Security Act. Now we've been looking at the draft of the Digital Security Act. In some ways, some provisions are just as restrictive, if not more. So this is something that civil society should engage with, journalists should engage with, lawyers should engage with. The court's authority. One other interesting point that has been touched on by this discussion, this panelist, is that the restrictions could be placed by the authorities. It could be placed by other entities that consider themselves hurt by media reports. But what if the court's own authority comes in conflict with the freedom of the press? And that is the concept of contempt. And contempt of court is rather loosely defined in Bangladesh. And that's why we see journalists often in the dock for reports that might have passed unnoticed or passed muster in other countries. So this is an interesting point and something that I hope we can discuss more as the evening goes on. I would like to now invite our third panelist, Mr. Zahirul Alam, to deliver his remarks.
Thank you. Eminent jurist Dr. Kamal Hossain, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The keynote speech just delivered by Honorable Dr. Kamal Hossain was no doubt very enriching and very enlightening. We are talking about the state of media in Bangladesh and also the judiciary. On 3rd of May, we just have observed World Press Freedom Day. London-based organization, which is called Article 19. This is a watchdog on media. They mount Bangladesh and the year 2016 as a very repressive year for the media. They pointed out 320 incidents of violations. Those are related to Muslim voice, abductions, intimidation, and in many other ways. So this is just a reporting or statistics, but this is not something that we should look at only the reports of different forums, different discussions are done, and even in front of Prime Minister, Chief Justice mentioned the business situation, and this is an open secret issue nowadays. So, talking about the fourth organ of the state, the press freedom or independent press is quite understandable. We are giving some account on the level or degree of independence we're enjoying right now. No doubt that we're currently not receiving any kind of telephonic instructions or advices or any kind of direct intimidation. That is my personal experience. But discreetly, in a different way, a fear factor or sense of self-censorship is very distinctly exist inside the media field. But the freedom of every organ in a democratic society must be respected, must be regarded, and must be practiced in a very holistic way. But whenever we talk, we always recognize the fact, but it cannot be expressed very publicly that the media is under pressure. But in recent some cases we saw that in the judiciary some cases they also summon some of the media outlets and journalists for the alleged contempt of court issue, and they have been quizzed, they have been asked and to explain their write-ups and reports. But I am not claiming that in all cases the media was in right premise. Maybe there were some overdue, maybe there are some excess, maybe there is some lack of responsibility. Definitely we recognize that freedom comes with responsibility, but at the same time the judiciary also have to protect the interest, protect the independence of the media. Otherwise, media, if they always suffer from fear factor that out of the executive branch or the judiciary, it will be very difficult for the media to express their mind, to report and to protect the interest of the people. There's a saying, it's an old adage that justice must not only be done, but it must seem to be done. So this is a very holistic responsibility from media's aim to protect the rights of people, to express and ventilate their expectations. So if they, and this has also been enshrined in our constitutions, it has been mentioned time and again by Professor Dr. Kamal Hossain and Professor, that in Article 39 is very evidently and very distinctly Bangladesh Constitution guaranteed the freedom of media. So in practice, if we do not, if we face problem, face trouble, we expect, and this is our expectation from the judiciary, that they will also stand by the media, and where they see any kind of excess or any kind of intimidation from other branches of the state, like executive or the legislative, they should come forward and stand by the media so that they can perform, they can serve their responsibility, they can discharge their commitment in
of the democratic system, and it's not called the fourth estate for nothing. However, as Zahir Lalan pointed out, that the ability of this important institution to carry out its duties is curtailed in many ways. Sometimes it can be curtailed by overt censorship, sometimes it's covert fear factors. As he mentioned, that if it's not a case of getting phone calls in the middle of the night, sometimes it's other kinds of pressure that compels journalists to exercise self-censorship. He also pointed out that the freedom of the press comes with responsibility, and that is something that as practicing journalists we are aware of, or we have to be aware of every day. One of the challenges facing us is not to sensationalize cases that we are reporting on. And there are, because, and this is something that Professor Mohammed also pointed out, that we don't want this case to be tried twice, once in a court of law and once in the court of public opinion. There are international best practices for the media to be more or as impartial as possible and as fair as possible. For example, at the Wall Street Journal, we are not allowed to write murder when reporting on a killing, unless it has been decided that it is murder by a court of law. If we are reporting on someone who is accused of a crime, it is essential that we get their version of events, failing that their lawyers or their families' version of events. So these are best practices that we have to strive towards. We have heard now from all three of our panelists, and we will open up the floor for questions. Once that discussion has been done, the chair will deliver his remarks and we will conclude. So I now open up the floor for questions. What I'm suggesting is that we will take a few questions and then we will ask the panelists to answer. So that will be more systematic. Thank you. Please raise your hand and the microphone will come to you.
Oh God, I've got 6, 7, 8 questions, but I'll be happy to do 2. Great honor to have all of you gentlemen here, particularly Kamal Hossain. I'm just going to start off with the 2 topics where I interviewed you 2 years ago and we talked about them. I'll come to the more complicated one next, a second. But first, the Law Commission is the body that we all know to be responsible for recommending laws to be changed, to be brought in, or to be implemented better or improved, rather. Far be it from the media to suggest to the Law Commission how to do their job or what they should be more concerned about. But I was just wondering whether at times you do wonder about a few things that when will they get around to it? The legal profession or the judiciary, the lawyers basically, set of laws governing the conduct of the police. The most amazing thing that I find about the Police Act is that it was brought in 1861 after the first Indian War of Independence. So it is particularly more, it is not even in the books in England, and it was brought in with the particular intention of suppressing any sort of independent activity on the part of the colonized population. So how can that remain in the books? It's very degrading, I think, frankly. So how can the media maybe encourage the Law Commission to get on with the job of getting these laws off the books in Bangladesh, because they don't belong in an independent country. And the second one is, the 2 words, the media and judiciary. When media and judiciary is discussed, actually, the elephant in the room is politics. So if I may to bring in politics, you have a diagnosis that you have returned to from time to time, which is we are a victim of unhealthy politics. Now, 2 years ago, we had given this diagnosis, unhealthy politics. Now, obviously, I personally haven't seen anything to suggest that our condition has improved. I would like to know if you have, and if you haven't, in that case, unhealthy politics now is starting to get into maybe life support, and maybe the doctors are starting to call when we shut off the machine. So, how is that going in terms of the political scene in the coming days? That's basically. I have more questions if I'm allowed.
So since that's actually 2 questions rolled in one, so I'm going to request Dr. Kamal Hossain to respond, and then we will move on to more questions.
Well, I thought maybe I take the first question and get the second one be taken by others. I'll come back after that, but I thought rather than monopolize them, I should.
So just to summarize the question.
The first question, yes.
So the question is, why is the Law Commission not getting rid of archaic laws?
No, but to update you, the Police Act was extensively sort of worked upon, and a draft law was ready in 2008. In fact, the caretaker government at that time was ready to enact it. But the government, but the people who are going to participate in the elections said we're having an election within a few months, let the elected government enact it. But this was a consensus bill which was done, because all parties had participated, professionals had participated, Scotland Yard had worked for a couple of years on it, and it's a very, very finished product. And you're quite right, the 1861 Police Act is something that, we feel embarrassed to admit that, we are still after more than 100 years, 150 years, still working with something that was done in 1861. So, it's not the Commission's failure. It's a question which the press should be asking the government. What has happened since 2008? Today is 2017. 9 years have gone by. They had said that immediately after the elections we'll enact it. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 5 years, and another 3 or 4. So It's not the Commission's fault. We need a police act. The police act draft is ready. The government might say, well, we think the draft has some imperfections, we will make some improvements or put it in some modified form. But to do nothing but go on with the 1861 Act, the onus is wholly on the government to explain why this is so. And certainly on the press to be raising these questions with the government, not with the Commission. So that's as far as the Police Act goes. What were the other two?
Contempt of court.
Yes. Now, contempt of court, a law had been passed, but the court has struck that down. The Supreme Court said that the way the law was enacted, it was to limit powers of the court. The court said the only law we have to protect ourselves is the Contempt of Courts Act. And I had appeared to defend the act and it was still struck down. So, again, it's not the Law Commission's fault. It's the court has done that, and there's a kind of tension between the government and the court on that subject. And the other one is sedition. Well, sedition or, Deshudrohita, what is the translation of that? Is that sedition?
Treason.
And what's the definition? What's the Bangla for sedition? Rashtradrohita, all right. So, it's a question of Deshudrohita and Rashtradrohita, I get it. So, the question is, I don't know, in actual cases, do they make a distinction or do Deshudrohita is enough for their purposes? You can be hanged for one, you can be hanged for the...
It's more how it's being received even in India and Pakistan. They go with anti-national and then...
Yeah, but it's worth looking at it, looking at exactly how these are being invoked and applied, whether the government makes that fine distinction between Deshudrohita and Rashtradrohita, because, if you say something which the government doesn't like, one of these dohitas will come in and first as threats and then, with actual sort of charges and so on. So I agree with you that the concept of these kind of laws is itself restrictive of freedom of the press, is a threat to the freedom of the press. And we have seen how editors have been charged, imprisoned and so on, invoking these laws. And where I'll tell you the classic case of the classic case in those days against Ittifaq, where the newspaper was forfeited. Shrangvad, the newspaper was forfeited in pre-independence days. And post-independence days, I said, in Irshad's period, Aaj Ke Kagaz was forfeited, even before any trial was done. So we have seen how this allegations of alleged sedition, alleged treason of one kind or another, is used as a pretext for draconian action, and is certainly a very major restriction of the freedom of the press. And one would say that these kinds of offences are something against which the press can be protected. That this is something that you cannot lightly bring against press, as it is tended to be done in the past. You might say, why have a sedition law at all? No, I agree with you. There's no reason why this treason will not serve the same purpose. If one is sedition, it will be treason as well. So,
there's the logic behind the UK getting rid of it. We started in the books in the UK.
Yeah. No, in principle, I agree that most of these draconian laws should go, and we have a constitution and democracy. And we have seen the history of these laws. You might say, well, sedition and treason are things that should be on the book. But we have seen the gross abuse and misuse of these laws. And it's in the light of that experience that we say that either they should go completely, or very clear sort of restriction should be imposed so that they cannot be abused. Thank you.
I think mostly in the form of anti-government, not the anti-state or anti.
Anti-national.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's not international either, it's anti-government.
Correct.
The second question was about politics and the less than healthy nature of it. Would you like to
I'm leaving this question to the others.
I don't know the best person to answer.
So I think you're more...
No, you said that I have been saying this for ever so long, that what we need is healthy politics. Point I keep saying is that young people also say, politics, we don't want to have anything to do with it, which you might say is a comment on current politics. I mean, if you go to university and ask, well, how is it, there's no politics in it? They say, no, politics is a terrible thing. And somebody who's writing a new dictionary in Bangla, I said, how do you define politics? Because if you define politics in the 60s, it would be, getting people together, putting ideas before them, uniting them on the basis of certain shared objectives, concerting their actions in order to achieve those objectives by mobilizing opinion and through political action. That would be the 60s definition. What would be the definition today? I ask you.
Manipulation and ambition, maybe.
Or dishonest business.
Personal ambition.
Dishonest business.
Dishonest business, yes.
The quickest way of making a lot of money. I mean, this is young people's definition, not mine. I mean, ask them what you say. This is the way we make the most money can be made by saying you're doing politics. So this is where I say that, it's not honest, good and bad politics. Politics has completely changed its meaning. And I am one of the few people who keep saying without politics you can't really run a participatory government. Participatory government is a country of 170 million people. Minus politics, it's unthinkable that you can have any kind of good governance. But by politics, I mean the 1960 definition of politics.
Thank you. Can we invite other questions, please? I see a hand there.
Well, I would like to ask Dr. Kamal Hossain, sir. We see that the journalists are often arrested over news reports. So, can Judiciary do anything on this thing from happening? Can Judiciary stop arresting news reporters?
So if the authorities arrest or issue arrest warrants for news reports, can the Judiciary protect journalists?
Defamation cases.
Yes, no. Of course, the judiciary has the power if the person affected can invoke the jurisdiction of the court, file an application and be heard. Court has powers to protect a person against that. But of course, between the actual arrest and so on, and the time it comes to court, some amount of harassment is there. You could be in jail for some weeks, be interrogated for some weeks before the matter can come to court, and then the hearing can take some more time. So some amount of harassment is unavoidable, but ultimately the court should be able to protect you if the arrest is without any really sustainable grounds.
Sir, this is Hassan Javed, senior correspondent, Kenyan. Sir, do you think that today our media and judiciary work freely and freely?
Well, I should ask you that. Are you from the media?
Media and judiciary?
No, but you yourself are from the media.
Yes,
media.
So then you tell me, what is your feeling? What is your experience? No, but you are media. I am not media. I am neither media nor judiciary.
But you are always observed. I know.
No, but I want to get your comments so that it can be a basis for my observation. Here is a person from media who felt that, he, good or bad, he is...
Judiciary?
About the media, you feel the media is freely able to do what it wants, express what it wants.
You are always in front of our judiciary function, so you tell us and we always want to talk with you.
Fair enough, okay, I'll be
I think he
straight.
wants to ask questions, not answer them.
No, but the question when a media person says, is the media free? I
We want
will
your answer.
No, but I agree, you will get my answer. I'm doing it presently, but I was curious that a media person should have a view on this. Anyway, so let me say without prejudice to what you might say as the media, I'll put a question. For example, the fate of the owner of ETV, Mr. Salam. I put this as a specific case because I did this case when he was the victim of BNP. His ETV, he is somebody who came from Germany with his savings and invested in ETV, Ekusha Television. The name Ekusha also suggests what his political orientation was. Well, he was really had a bad time with BNP because, whatever reasons Anyway, I appeared for him, and after a year and a half of fighting, we got the thing back for him. And he was, became the owner of Ekusha Television and is continuing. And then suddenly he fell foul of the present government. I mean, I was sorry to see that he then went into prison, and he went into prison for over 2 years. And his whole ownership of Ekusha television has been taken away and given to somebody else. So, I mean, these are things which I find difficult to comprehend. And yet it's happened. What do you as pressmen who are here, do you think that is an example of freedom of the press?
I think the panelists, the journalists and the panelists in the panel can maybe add some thoughts on what Kamal Hossain is interrogating.
Yes, please feel free to add your comments.
Well, NTV has also lost it.
No, actually, sir, when my colleague was asking question and you just actually he was trying to evade when you were asking back. I mean, that signifies the state of the situation actually, so it doesn't need much explanation. We are, as I say, that there is no such direct intimidation or intervention or advices or instructions or whatever. That's not in direct form, but definitely a kind of fear, discomfort instilled or infused into the heart and mind of the media that instigated or drives them to go for kind of or degree of self-censorship so that they stay in. I was sharing with one of my colleagues here that the licenses was awarded out of their political allegiance. They are out there to serve their political masters and to protect, to protect their, to some extent, ill-gotten money. So this is generally a perspective. But definitely, I'm not saying that media is in a unique situation right now. They have been experiencing this situation for long, and they have also been struggling to overcome, to confront the situations, and eventually they won. So I'm not trying to portray a sorry figure, sorry situation, but in the days to come, definitely things will improve, and the concerted efforts will be there to overcome the situation someday. Thank you very much.
I'm glad you raised the question of licensing, because I think the licensing issue is certainly important, because government has very effective power to control this electronic media where licensing is required, and also of course for press publication you also need to get the declaration approved and so on. Now, of course, courts can oversee arbitrariness in licensing policies, but as I've said from the examples that you know, people have not felt emboldened enough to challenge when they've lost the television station like Ekusha or even NTV.
Channel 1.
And Channel 1 and so on. The one who are divested don't come to court, although they could come to court in theory.
Thank you. Really important points.
No, but
We have another question from the floor.
Ensuring that Tariq once or twice is not such a dirty.
Thank you. At first, I would like to compliment Cosmos Foundation for organizing this very topical roundtable. Sir, you very rightly mentioned that one aspect that we have to contend with is the rise of social media. And that also presents a challenge before us, because how do we regulate social media? Because social media, as we have seen in the case of Bangladesh and also across the world, is also a place where a lot of misinformation, disinformation has been spread. And extremist organizations in particular have made a lot of use of social media to spread their message. So in the context of Bangladesh, how do we regulate it without actually curtailing access of people? Thank you.
You want to take that?
Thank you. And my understanding is even social media is not really free, because there are restrictions. There's content goes missing. Try posting something which is extremely opposed to the powers that be. Yes, and before you know it, it's removed. They do this on a more corporate basis, and another thing that is also happening with social media is that the mass surveillance of social media. At some point, we used to think that the surveillance is only, targeted surveillance. That someone is just looking at, okay, this guy is really suspicious, and he does post some very, very, very controversial issues, or he has a certain agenda that he's trying to get across, and so on. But these days, the surveillance is total and complete. It's what Mr. Snowden calls mastering the internet. Now, in such situations, I think probably I'm moving a step back, and in such situations, it's relatively very easy to actually, let's not say regulate, but control social media. So the opportunity is there, and we did have Section 57, and under which a lot of people have been charged, and that someone has said something objectionable against so-and-so. But at the same time, one also does have his fundamental rights in this country. He has a right, Sir has referred to Article 39, and Article 39 does provide for your freedom of expression, subject to certain restrictions. Now, that as a citizen, one has certain rights, and any regulation that comes in, or let's say any kind of control that comes in, needs to consider that the implications of Article 39(1), and so that's. I'm sure now we're going to get a digital, Digital Security Act. So, and that might. I think some people are privy to the draft of the Digital Security Act, and maybe that is what the future looks like if it gets passed. It will get passed anyway because of the absolute majority that exists. Thank you.
No, but this last point is worth picking up, because just because you have an absolute majority doesn't mean that you pass laws in 1 day or 4 days. The concept of proper enactment of legislation is that a bill is first prepared and there is opinion sought across the country. The press is able to comment, public opinion is sampled, and then it's all brought before a parliamentary committee on legislation which considers all of this, reconsiders the bill in the light of the opinions received, and then presents something for enactment. So that is how a parliamentary system deals with legislation. Dealing with complicated legislation instantaneously is not parliamentary legislation. It's a kind of legislation which is there when you don't have parliament. The question is whether we have a parliamentary system in name or not. At least if it's there in name, as we do now, which means that legislation cannot be passed in the way you're suggesting, that it will be passed anyway. In fact, that is almost contempt of parliament to say it that way, because it says that these are all people who, the other way of saying it, they're a rubber stamp parliament. It's offensive to them. So what we should be saying is, please, you are not a rubber stamp parliament. Please do what we expect of you, which is discuss these issues, get public opinion, let that public opinion be ventilated in the press, and what you have just said, that especially this digital security, it's very important that a law like that, which has implications for freedom of expression, for the working of democracy, for the working of the Constitution, should be extensively discussed before it's attempted to be enacted. And no, there's no reason why you can't start saying this. Start saying this now. It's saying it will be passed in a few days. You and I and everyone. I don't think this is seditious to say we want you to take opinion. It's a very important piece of legislation. Therefore, you should give people an opportunity to say how it can be done in the best way.
There's a law coming in relation to the transport sector, and we've seen all the bad things going on in the transport sector in recent times. But in the end, some of the private organizations had to organize a public hearing on their own because the government didn't send a representative. This happened just last week.
Sure. No, but these are things we can talk about. This is not at all seditious to say these draft bills should be circulated extensively and opinion sought, public opinion, affected sections of the population, experts and so on. This is in the interest of the country as a whole, not of any particular segment, so that I don't see any reason why the legislative process should get into a process of, as you say, it will be passed instantaneously because someone has produced a draft.
If I may add a few things, there's actually very little debate on our legislative process, and I'm sure you know about the process that which goes on with drafting of our laws. That it's a purely executive function to draft laws, and since there is very little, if any, discussion on the law at the legislature, the law passes the way the executive wants it to pass. So I think this is a bit more fundamental issue of actually having this legislative control over executive, the gambit of executive power, which can be better addressed, and I'm sure parliamentarians would feel more empowered if they actually contributed and had a wider discussion on the draft bill which is before them. But in some instances, laws are actually being put up on websites, I have noticed.
Bills are being put up and then the public opinions are being sought.
Yes.
But then in the end, are they being actually taken into account?
That is.
But are people giving any opinions? You see, I think also citizens' activism is something we need to stimulate.
They're invited to and they do. There was on the power section, for example, on the price rises, on the price hikes, those public hearings that were held. But were the opinions actually taken into view, because they weren't absolutely the opposite to what most people who appeared spoke about?
Well, I happen to have been present in some of these public hearings.
Right.
And actually where the proposal is made to, this is the BARC, the Bangladesh Energy Regulatory Commission.
Right.
And they do hold these. But at the end of the day, I agree with you that it's actually passed the way that the power companies have wanted the tariff that they wanted. So
there's a requirement in these public hearings, but then are they actually serving their purpose? That is the question.
My question is why? Why are the public hearings not serving the purpose?
Because, it may be that it's predetermined what the decision will be. But they fulfill that requirement of having held a public hearing. But
no, I'm sure what you're saying is right, but I'm saying why is what is being said at the public hearing is being totally ignored. Shouldn't this be brought to the notice of the public?
Yes.
So there was a public hearing. These are the issues that were raised. These were the arguments that were given. These have been totally ignored, and the law has been pushed through. At least the public should know. And this is the role of the press. See, if the press, of course, how much risk will the press take? My feeling is that, a kind of risk aversion is being encouraged. Even brave editors are now realizing that what's the point of, taking risks every day? So, just look the other way.
This does raise a serious concern about it.
Regarding social media, we know from news reports that the number of requests from the government to take down social media content has skyrocketed in the last year or so. So social media is already being regulated in a way. The telecom ministry made a big push to invite Google, Facebook and others to set up offices in Bangladesh. The purpose was that the government could interact with them directly to take down content. Now we know that Google and Facebook and others have started to do this. The question is it being done properly? So again, the question of transparency. The company should make public what they've taken down and why, based on which guidelines. And the government should do likewise. So we have a question from the chair. Are there any questions from the floor?
Thank you so much. I have got a very simple question to Dr. Kamal Hossain. These days we are seeing the Chief Justice taking on the government or government officials. Is this a good sign to talk about the government by the Chief Justice against government officials of the government? Is it a good sign or what?
Well, it's just manifestation of a problem that is existing. And the Law Minister himself has taken notice of that, saying we should talk about this to resolve that. So it is not that even the Law Minister says there isn't a problem. And I've given you some of the problems that are there. That appointments are not being made into the lower judiciary because there's a pending judgment saying that they must consult. Now, since they don't want to consult, they don't make appointments. If they don't make appointments, there are large numbers of pending vacancies, as a result of which the dispensation of justice at the district level is held up in so many districts. Now, question is, this has gone on for over a year or two. Now, this is in a way some of the issues that are being brought up. And, it's a question of how it will be brought up. My question is, why is this? So we have 300 members of parliament. Why are they totally silent? They don't know what's going on in their districts. Why courts are not functioning in their district? Should they not be raising this somewhere? If nobody raises it, ultimately person who is the apex of the judiciary has to say, this is what is affecting the judiciary. It's an abnormal situation. I agree it should not be for the Chief Justice to do it. It should be for Parliament, it should be for the Law Minister. The Law Minister is saying this, whatever he said, we should talk. He should know, the Law Minister should be the person who's taking the initiative to resolve these problems. I was once Law Minister in prehistoric times. In most of these issues that arose between judiciary and the executive, the Law Minister was the one, the mediator, went and talked to the Chief Justice. Chief Justice raised certain problems, came back to the Cabinet and said, this is the problem, and let's tell the Chief Justice that we accept this. You see, for example, in those days, Chief Justice said some names. He said, sorry, we can't appoint these people because of their role during the liberation struggle. They supported the Pakistan government, so I said, I would rather resign than propose this to be a judge. And of course, I could persuade the Chief Justice that, don't press this point. If we don't want the executive to turn down your proposal, but you must realize you were in this country and here's this person, this is the evidence that he was supporting the Pakistan government.
I have got another simple question. Recently, the Chief Justice has said that jail term means for one serving for his her entire life. Is this redefinition is correct?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
The Chief Justice recently has redefined the life sentence in jail. He said that life term means for one to serve the entire his life, his or her life in jail.
There will be no parole.
No, it's probably not that. It's not just that. What he's referring to is that the sentence, the life sentence, is it extends up to the end of one's natural life.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and the question is that whether this is in line with the law or.
But this is given in a specific case, not the judgment. This was in the context of a judgment pronounced by the court.
In general.
No, but my recollection is there's a particular case before the court where this judgment was given, in which case this general proposition is put. In that case, it's not Chief Justice, it's the whole court. It would be either 4 judges or 5 judges who concurred in that. And if anyone wants to think that it should be reviewed, it could be taken up before the court, because it's not for us to make an opinion. The highest appellate court has given a view. It is the highest appellate court's view, which they can review when it's appropriately brought before them.
Thank you. We have a question from the chair.
The public spare which could have been avoided. But I think this is also a sign that our democracy is kicking and well.
The last proposition I questioned, if it was kicking in well, you would not have these backs.
But still,
But I agree, I know the nuance that you put the
No, he's still there. He's still in one piece,
Yeah.
So he's still continuing.
Sure.
So,
No, I take your point.
Yeah,
But
so.
There's no doubt that these matters should be dealt with. As the Law Minister himself has said, why don't we discuss it I mean, I don't want to get into public discussion with the law minister, but why don't you take up this matter and views on both sides and bring them for whoever you have to bring them and resolve them. And the law minister can suggest to others that you discuss among yourselves. He has to play a more proactive role.
The other question is about the contempt of court case. I think the court has been given sweeping powers, additional extra powers. So is there any way out of this? Is there a way to iron out these powers in order to strike a balance between the different organs of the state?
Well, an attempt was made to pass this law. I mean, there was a law passed which was trying to put certain limits on the contempt of court. The court said that no, there have been limits developed through case law over the years. And so it's not that this power is unlimited. We recognize it's not an unlimited power. I mean, the court can't say, I don't like your face, so I cite you for contempt, and this is, or something like that. So that, there are obvious limits. There has to be grounds which the court has to say, these are the grounds on which I am issuing a notice saying why you should not be tried for contempt. You have a chance then to come and state your case, and then there is a hearing and so on. So it's not that the power is as unlimited as it's sometimes suggested. But what people had wanted to put is some kinds of things which could be put up as defense and so on. And the court doesn't want those formal sort of provisions to limit its judicial discretion. Because we shouldn't forget that this is a matter of judicial discretion, but contempt is a very extraordinary jurisdiction. The court is in a way judging in its own cause. It is one of the two parties, and then it is also the judge. And we agree that it's a basic principle that you should not be a judge in your own cause. But contempt of court jurisdiction is one where this in fact is the case. You are judge in your own cause. And therefore you are expecting, there are very many excellent judgments, including those of the House of Lords and Privy Council and so on, which says we have to be very, very sort of careful not to be seen as, making a judgment which is not objective, not impartial, because we are being judges in our own cause. So it's interesting how there are judgments where courts have, even they said the court is an ass, in an English case. The court is an ass, and the court said we accept that. We are not asses, but if someone has said it, they've said it, we'll not convict him contempt.
But to clarify another point about this, there used to be, I think it's one of the authors of the Constitution of Bangladesh. He did a very excellent job, and this is one of the best in the South Asia. This constitution, and this is probably the unique, constitution which has separate provision protecting, press freedom. As far as I know, it's so. What happened? Why things went wrong? It's not happening in practice. The journalists are not getting the freedom that has been incorporated in the Act, enshrined in the Act. Why did the journalists are not getting that?
My short answer is that we should have a properly working democracy, and the Constitution should be functioning in all its aspects. Fortunately, and I said the credit for the Constitution goes not to me, but to all the 300 people who participated, and the 34-member Constitution Committee, which had most of the senior cabinet members, leaders of the independence movement. And I believe the success of the Constitution was, and it's something that we tried to find the consensus which had been built around fundamentals over the years. It's not something we defined, because each of the principles that you see in the Constitution has a history of at least 30 years behind it, or at least 24 years of Pakistan behind it. Democracy, and you know how we had to fight against anti-democratic practices, and since the language movement, since 1954, when the Muslim League was voted out totally, this is how democracy came from among the people, saying that things are being done against our wishes. We are able to use the right to vote, and this is why our belief in the right to vote has been so strong. That every time we have had adult franchise and we've gone to the people, they have done impossible things. Like vote out the Muslim League, which is unthinkable. The party which had been in control of the central government, which had led the independence movement in 47, all of them were just wiped out. And the chief minister at the time was defeated by a student, a 27-year-old student, Khalik Nawaz. Another one in Kapashia was also voted out. This Fakir Abdul Mannan, very senior politician, was defeated by a 25-year-old student called Tajuddin Ahmad in 1954. So this is all history.
As the architect of the Constitution, sorry, Chairman was just touching upon, could you maybe say something about the citizen's role as master of the state? This is something that I think is not enough felt amongst Bangladeshis, amongst...
Yeah, I think you've put it in one sentence, and that's what I keep saying all the time. You see, Article 7 of the Constitution to me is one of the most important, if not the key to the Constitution. Power in this republic belongs to the people and must be exercised by their elected, by them in the manner provided in the Constitution, which is through their elected representatives. Now, you said earlier also, citizens' activism. Citizens have to be active. And I asked you, why do we do nothing about it? Even us, including myself. Why am I, if you say that this act, Digital Security Act, and presumably it will come on website, or it's not come yet. Has it come?
I don't think it's
There's so many experts here. The digital thing come on website.
No.
It will come soon.
Yes.
Inshallah.
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 Yes.
Okay. When it comes, then let us not be sitting. Why don't you call a Cosmos meeting? We'll discuss that draft bill. You take some risk in doing that, but we'll all be willing to share with you comments on the draft bill. This is a very good audience which would be, happy to participate. I'm sure many editors may come and independent. You want to test it. Specific suggestion. This legislation on this Digital Security Act, let it be subject matter of Cosmos Dialogue. Now I sit there and participate.
Also, there are questions about the constitutionality of many of the legislation which are being promulgated these days. How far, whether they are actually ultra biased.
No, but honestly, this is where I feel that we have to stand up and open up. There's something which you could tell, but you do not know about disappearances and extrajudicial killing. That is why everyone has become silent.
Fear.
But in all authoritarian governments we face this. Were there no disappearances in Pakistan days? Were there no disappearances when we had 8 years of authoritarian government here? I couldn't stay in my house for weeks because police was raiding it every day. We went to jail. 43 people were arrested from my living room, including Sheikh Hasina. When this colonel came and surrounded us all, and 43 of us were there. And when Sheikh Hasina walked in, he says, Sheikh Hasina has walked in, and the voice comes from there and said, bring her in also. So then the colonel tells me, but we have not done our vehicles. So I said, we'll give you our cars, we volunteer, we all have cars, take us. No, sir, how can we take you in your cars? That cannot be done. So it is ludicrous as that, but they took 43 of us in for 15 days.
Thank you to all the panelists, and thanks to the audience for these extremely interesting questions that have opened up and explored various facets of this issue. I now invite our chairman, our chair, Kamal Hossain, chairman of Cosmos Group, to deliver the closing remarks.
Thank you very much. Since I'm the last speaker, I think almost all the points that I wanted to discuss has already been covered in full. So I shouldn't repeat those points again. But still some questions, that stays my mind. The questions about this powers, the powers of the court, to decide on this. They have enormous powers given to them, which will stand in the way of press freedom, which amounts to curtailment of press freedom, which is guaranteed by our Constitution. This is persisting. So, is there any way to cut down the code to? It's not, as Dr. Kamal Hossain said, unlimited power. We're not talking about unlimited powers. We're talking about very sweeping powers have been given on this subject of this contempt of court case. So if that's cleared, I think many of the problems that we as journalists face will be overcome. This is my opinion about that. So whether you can react to that, that question of mine, I'm not sure. And judiciary is a very important state organ and is bound to maintain stringent impartiality and neutrality in the judgments handed down by them. But whether this is happening in practice or not, Dr. Kamal Hossain is the best judge, I think. He can sit in judgment for the judges, but what the judges are doing on this count. It's said that, this has been said, I think, by one of the speakers, the judges should not only do justice, but they should be seen to do justice. Whether that's happening in practice or not, I doubt. And the other point, the public confidence in the legal system should be allowed not to erode. But in practice, what's happening, the legal system is not, there are some instances, it might happen that the whole legal system might collapse, if the public loses confidence in the judiciary to deliver justice, administration of the law. So that could happen. So in that case, I think they need the assistance of the media, and the media is on their side, And I think there's no inherent conflict between the media and the judiciary, except for those points that I raised, content of court case, and also there are also some others, And I think there is certain barriers, that should be lifted, I think, as soon as possible. Barriers like, there's no direct communication between the judges and the pressmen. It has been forbidden by law, I think, that you can't contact pressmen or you can't issue one. But is there a public relation office attached with the court?
No, I suppose there's somebody entrusted with, say, making judgments available to the press, and the press wants a judgment, that there must be some part of the registry they can go to and so on. But what you're saying is right, that there should be some way in which communications could be there, which are completely open and legitimate.
Yeah, which are lacking. So the other points which I wanted to make about it. So they should see that the free speech should never become a casualty. It's up to the judges to see to it. But unfortunately, this is not being adhered to. So that would be one area to demand some attention. And there are some checks and balances, institutional checks and balances, but this is not working perfectly well. And some institutions are more powerful than others, which is not a very positive sign for the good of the democracy. So those barriers should be removed, and the relationship that exists between the judiciary and the press, that should be scrutinized, and they should be recalibrated to bring it in line with modern thinking on judiciary and law and all that. And also, there's an urgent need to forge a strong partnership between the two, which would yield huge dividends in terms of a healthy balance between the two institutional forces at work. As the both are interdependent and complement each other, and also, and despite the occasional rupture and tension that surface from time to time, their ties would be proved to be synergetic and mutually reinforcing. So I think this is one of the messages that should go out of this dialogue. So what is your opinion on that?
No, I think it's critically important what you have said, that press is the media through which people can get express their opinions, their objectives, the values that they want to see promoted, their appraisal of draft laws, draft policies. See, when we say people are the source of power, the means by which they can exercise this power is through expression of their views. And that is where the free press comes in. Now, I think people should be more proactive in trying to get their views heard, And of course, even when they're heard, they may not be covered in the press. So then it's to be seen that they are covered in the press. I still think we are at a point in time where there are sections of the press where views can get expressed if you make the effort. I mean, there may be some line that they may not cross, some risk they may not take. But by and large, I think some of our press is still sufficiently free to be able to reflect what we say. Question is, are we saying it? And are we saying it and sending it to the press? And making an effort to get it printed in the press? Because there's some fear operating on all sides, some apprehension. And as I say this, I keep hearing, but you don't hear, don't you know of the disappearances and extrajudicial killing? I said, but this has always happened in Bangladesh, it's not something new. And we had to, despite that, people express themselves. And, 170 million or 160 million people can't all be made to disappear or be killed, extrajudicially killed. Not possible. So, it's a question of not exaggerating the threat and the fear. There are forced disappearances and extrajudicial killing, which should be a source of concern for everybody, but that should not have the effect of silencing everybody. And I honestly think that, we would not have had this discussion if we worried too much about extrajudicial killing and disappearances, thinking if we walk out, we might disappear. If in fact one of us disappears, then next session you can say that I was exaggerating what I said, the lack of the threat to free speech.
I was a little worried when the policeman walked in, sir. I was a little worried when the policeman walked in.
No. Policeman walked in now.
Policeman taking care of us, looking after security.
I'm sure.
Let's look at it.
No, sure. No, sure. Taking care of it.
That's security. I just so what we are lacking in at the moment looks like we need to have a citizen activism. We should be very extensive and intensive, all out, to save the country, to lay down the foundation of a true democracy, takes deeper roots. There's a very challenging in front of us. So I think that the judiciary and the press combine together in this common cause to attain this objective.
I'm happy to see enough of the younger generation present here as well. I think you must have much larger audiences of younger people to know how, right from 51, 52 in the language movement, right up till, all the movements that we've had. They have been the ones who have clearly expressed, public opinion in the most effective way. And one of the concerns is that, they are sort of, in a way, being depoliticized in a bad sense. And I don't think they should have politics among students, that party politics and partisan politics and agitation, by no means. But they should be concerned with public issues. They are the citizens and future leaders of the country. So how can they not be concerned about issues and principles? And in fact, I would very much like to go and, I do go in fact even now into the university and speak about these things. When I have students, I find them very conscious. Anyone think that, students have become depoliticized and are not conscious of this. I find them very conscious. They read newspapers, they follow television, they find the internet and so on. So I'm very happy when I go and see that the university students are not what we think, that they have completely turned off their, this antennas. But there's an environment in which they are not being encouraged to discuss constructively. And honestly, yes, and if they are given that, and this currently with what has come in the High Court, that the University Students' Union elections, which have not been held now for 25 years, should be held. Because that will give the students an opportunity to discuss issues and so on and bring them back to life.
It's true. The last election was probably in 1991.
That's right. How many years is that?
It was in the era of democracy. There has been no tax election. It is irony.
26 years.
26 years. That's right. 26 years.
91.
So you're
27.
You're very right. That we should involve the younger generation in this movement. There should be a social movement, for this.
And they should be actively discussing issues. They should be
rights, that open discussion on different issues that face us.
I would have been happier if the younger people asked more questions now, today, this evening. No, but they've not been encouraged to do this.
And they're also not being depoliticized, but probably they are being repoliticized also. Repoliticized as well as, radicalized. This is very unfortunate the way things are moving. So this is the right time, that Kamal Hossain point.
No, Bangla bolte
We are opening the floor for further questions.
This is Saifullah working for UND. I would like to know from Dr. Kamal sir, do you think that media should be allowed to raise any loopholes or and throw ceremonies in the judgment of court?
Well, no. Some amount of criticism of judgments is permissible, but those limits are well defined in the case law that has developed over decades. So within those limits that power exists, that capacity to criticize judgments exists. But unfortunately, because not all people who comment on judgments are fully conversant with those principles or have that experience, and the tendency may be then to make kind of arguments which people make if a judgment goes against them. Now, that is, if that happens, that anyone against whom a judgment is delivered immediately bursts out and says this is completely unjust, unfair, against the law, against the constitution, against all that is good and holy, then court system couldn't function. Criticism has to be well-founded and within those limits that are well-developed.
Any other questions?
Younger generation.
Sir, my question is there any effective way to free the press and also the judiciary from the political pressure or purpose?
Yes, working democracy, make democracy work. Look at the Constitution. The Constitution text is publicly available. In fact, I was responsible for making this pocket edition. And the credit goes to the British High Commission. They asked us on the 25th anniversary of the Constitution taking place, what can we do? As it help us bring out a pocket edition. And the British High Commission bought out a pocket edition. And since then, of course, we said, look, this is very well worth it. So government now produces a pocket edition. And whenever I lectured in the university, I said, and to my juniors, I said, sleep with it under your pillow at night. And when you walk around in the day, keep it in your pocket so that you know what's in it. It's not difficult. If you want to know how to make democracy work, it's all there. It's in English and Bangla, parallel text.
Sir, but day by day the people of Bangladesh are cut out from the political process, but they are not interested in political exercise. So how the situation will be changed?
No, but it's your generation and also particularly people in your profession. What you are saying here, you should be writing about these things. That look, all these things are written about our rights, about what we can do and what we should do. Things are written here about what government should do, what the limits are that government should observe, what is expected of legislation. It's all there. And point is, this is completely beyond controversy. First signature in the Constitution, which you can go and see in Parliament, is Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Number 2, Sayyid Nazrul Islam. Third, Tajuddin. They've all signed this document. So it's not a document on which there is that kind of partisan controversy possible, at least not when there's an Awami League government. So you can certainly cite this Constitution and not be afraid of being charged with sedition or whatever you said, treason or any of those things, not at all. Pure patriotism. And you say that as Bangabandhu had said, article so-and-so, say it. And it's all there, it's not seditious stuff, all this about fundamental rights, what you can, freedom of expression, it's all there. Invoke it, write it in the newspapers, make public speeches citing this. Keep it in your hand or your pocket, bring it out and say, look, this is it. And also editions you can buy where all the signatures are there, right? Advise them that you do one with signatures. So you can show that this is the signature. Bangabandhu signed this document. This is not a seditious document. Right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have a question.
Sir, good afternoon. I would like to ask a question to you, that how media and judiciary can support and help each other.
Sure. It's a very good question, and indeed, you see, they're all on the side of the Constitution. Both media, if it's really playing its role, is empowering citizens, empowerment of the citizens, by giving them correct information, by giving them arguments against, say, governments or other arguments which feel need to be examined together, because for every argument there is an alternative counter argument that also needs to be considered. So you can have informed, rational discussion instead of, just alleging that the other side is motivated, the other side is unpatriotic, and so on. I mean, this Digital Security Act, this is a very good way of having an intelligent discussion on it. Everyone who make suggestions that this provision goes too far, or this provision is so widely formulated that any innocent statement can also get a person prosecuted. So you can make those, and I think we must make those suggestions. Now I still get, if Cosmos doesn't hold it, we'll hold a meeting of this kind, getting as many people to come and say, please let us have your views about this session, this, and I'll do a critical review of it and put it before a house, not one house, many houses. I think it should be discussed in every district in Bangladesh. And that's yet possible. There's nothing, I don't think the government can stop you. If you take a hall and you call people, and I still think you'll get audiences. I don't think we have gone so terrified or terrorized that you will not find audiences in Bangladesh. You see, this is our strength, that in Bangladesh, in a way we have all become silent without anyone forcing us to be silent. I don't think there's any force in that sense. I mean, there's an atmosphere that's been created, disappearances and extrajudicial. I don't think that, you feel that, I don't feel that if I go out I'm going to disappear. And none of us should feel that. And it's not possible for that to happen. And especially if you stay within limits of reason and what you discuss, the reasons you give, the discussion we have. I mean, I can show you that on the Digital Security Act, we can have a perfectly rational discussion for 15 days and put out huge amount of arguments for consideration by all of the people in all of the districts. And then I would really like to see how the government can force through something ignoring everything that we say. It's not possible to ignore everything that we say and still claim legitimacy for legislation. You see, active citizenship, you use the word, active citizenship. You see, we say the power belongs to us, and I keep saying that we must believe that ourselves, number one. Believing it, we must exercise it. And again, I say not individually, but we can all sit as in groups like this, discuss things and say, we the people believe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you have this in all the 67 districts, and you have a broad consensus, believe me, I don't think there's any government, however, strong-willed, that can ignore that. But we have to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, I see another question from the floor.
Is there another question?
Good.
Okay, thank you, honorable guests. I don't need this. My question is to Dr. Kamal Hossain, and I would prefer my mother tongue Bangla.
Go ahead.
আজকের যে প্রসঙ্গ গণমাধ্যম এবং বাংলাদেশের বিচার ব্যবস্থা, এই প্রসঙ্গের সাথে মানে ইনডিরেক্টলি প্রাসঙ্গিক একটি প্রশ্ন আমি আপনাকে করতে চাই। In 1960, 60-এর দশকে যখন আইয়ুব খান যখন ক্ষমতায় আসলেন, যখন ইত্তেফাককে বন্ধ করে দেওয়া হলো, আমার প্রশ্নটা হচ্ছে যে 2017-এ আমরা আবার ঠিক সেই রকমই একটা এনভায়রনমেন্ট এবং সেই অলমোস্ট লাইক সেম ক্যাটাগরি এক ধরনের ডিসকাশন আমরা করছি। তো আমার প্রশ্নটা হচ্ছে যে what went wrong? Like after 47 years, আমরা একটা স্বাধীন দেশ যখন করলাম, একটা আমাদের সামাজিক ন্যায় বিচারের ভিত্তিতে আমাদের সংবিধানের যে একটা অংশ আছে, তারপরে যে what went wrong? Because like এখন এমন একটা সময় যেখানে হচ্ছে কি হিস্ট্রিকে ম্যানিপুলেট করা হচ্ছে বিভিন্ন ওয়েতে ফ্রম ডিফারেন্ট পার্সপেক্টিভস। সেই জায়গাটাতে আমাদের প্রজন্মের কাছে if we ask you these questions, because you are part of the history, so what went wrong and what should be addressed? This is my question.
খুবই ভালো প্রশ্ন. The question is simply that, with all this dissatisfaction that is being expressed in the question, after 45 years of independence, when we still have the constitution has not been abrogated, it is still there, of course with a lot of amendments, 16, 17 amendments. What went wrong? And I would say that possibly, I don't say, are the expectations which the Constitution raised, are these expectations being fulfilled? Let me put it in a more positive way. Let us not assume that it's all gone wrong, but many of the things that we expect are not happening.
In the preamble,
yeah,
very well.
You see, I would again, if I had an extra copy, I'd give it to you now and say, just go through it with a pencil and take off, is this happening, is this happening, is this happening? If this is not happening, why do we not speak up and say that this should happen? I agree with you that what has happened is we have not had working democracy continuously for 45 years, right? We've had very severe interruptions, assassinations. I remember 75, 15th of August, 3rd of November. I was into exile for 5 years, and possibly I survived because I was in exile. So those are not normal things. But despite that, we want to be very positive. Despite assassinations, despite the Constitution having been suspended, fortunately for us, our Constitution has never been abrogated. In other words, no one has put it into the dustbin. They have said, no, we are suspending some provision. Yeah, in Pakistan, in the 24 years we were there, 3 constitutions were just torn up and thrown into the dustbin. Our Constitution has been suspended for short periods, or not very short periods sometimes, but it's never been, no one has felt strong enough to say we abrogate it. And so therefore the Constitution that we passed in 72 is still there, signed by, and that's one of the reasons I don't think it gets torn up, because you can't say we respect Bangabandhu and still tear up the Constitution which bears his signature. You see, so this is your strength, all of us as our strength, that this Constitution is something we can all invoke and say, look, this is what's written there. Bears the signature of Bangabandhu 1, 2, 3, 4, it's all there. So how can you not say that this is something which should not happen? And all the fundamental rights are there. Speech, association, assembly, press, you name it, it's all there. Against the arbitrary punishment, degrading punishment and so on. Detention, which is arbitrary, is all prohibited. Then come to positive things, the democracy, working democracy. We should have a very active discussion in all 67 districts. What is গণতন্ত্রের ব্যাখ্যাটা দিতে হবে, তোমাকে বলি যে গণতন্ত্রের অর্থটা কি? জনগণ সেখানে ক্ষমতার মালিক, কিভাবে সে মালিককে যে ক্ষমতা সে প্রয়োগ করবে, এখানে তো গণতান্ত্রিক প্রতিষ্ঠানের কথা চলে আসে প্রত্যেক স্তরে. আমাদের চিন্তা সেটাই ছিল, কেন একদম প্রথমে আমরা বলেছি যেখানে ক্ষমতা প্রয়োগ হবে প্রত্যেক স্তরে এটা নির্বাচিত প্রতিনিধিরা করবে. Power wherever exercised at any level, local to national, must be by elected representatives. That's a fundamental article. That's why we believe elections are so important. Now come to this. আজকে আসল ইস্যু নিয়ে কি প্রবলেম হচ্ছে? ইলেকশন অবাধ নিরপেক্ষ নিশ্চিত করা হচ্ছে কি হচ্ছে না? Ask yourself that. এখানে আমি মনে করি যে আজকের আলোচনা সত্যি দরকার, অল ডিস্ট্রিক্টস এটা ওপেন আলোচনা হওয়া উচিত, যে আমরা 47 থেকে বাঙালিরা অবাধ নিরপেক্ষ নির্বাচন নিয়ে আন্দোলন করেছি, সফল আন্দোলন করেই ভাষা আন্দোলনে আমরা বিজয় অর্জন করেছি। 54-তে আমরা মুসলিম লীগকে বিদায় দিয়েছি ভালো ইলেকশনের মধ্যে দিয়ে, 70-এর ভালো ইলেকশনের মধ্যে দিয়ে, যেখানে আমি এই রাজধানীর ইলেকশন পরিচালনার দায়িত্বে ছিলাম, আমি বঙ্গবন্ধুর চিফ ইলেকশন এজেন্ট ছিলাম, সেখানে আমরা 167টি পেলাম 169-এর মধ্যে। স্বাধীনতার প্রতি আমরা রায় দিলাম অবাধ নিরপেক্ষ নির্বাচনের মাধ্যমে। 2008-এ আমরা কি করলাম? সেই অবাধ নিরপেক্ষ নির্বাচন। তো অবাধ নিরপেক্ষ নির্বাচনের কোনো বিকল্প হতে পারে না, নির্বাচনকে নিয়ে টানাটানি একদম করা উচিত না, কেন যারাই করেছে তাদের পরিণতি খুবই ভয়াবহ হয়েছে। আমি খারাপ বলবো না, ভয়াবহ বলবো, যে চিন্তা করো তো সেই তোমরা তরুণরা আসলে তো তোমাদের উজ্জ্বল ভবিষ্যৎ অপেক্ষা করছে, ভয়াবহ মোটেই না ভবিষ্যৎ। যদি এইসব ব্যাপারে আমরা একটু, এখন তো 45 পাকিস্তান আমাদের যোগ কর 60-70 বছরের ইতিহাস আমাদের, এই ইতিহাস থেকে তো আমরা শিক্ষা গ্রহণ করতেই পারি যে অবাধ নিরপেক্ষ নির্বাচনের কোনো বিকল্প নেই। বাঙালিদেরকে অবাধ নিরপেক্ষ নির্বাচন বোঝানোর জন্য কোনো কি বলবো যে ওই সেমিনারও দরকার হবে না, ওই পাওয়ার পয়েন্টও দরকার হবে না, তাই না? অবাধ নিরপেক্ষ নির্বাচন তুমি তো ভালোভাবে বোঝো নাকি? গ্রামে সবাই তো বোঝে, আমার বিশ্বাস। কেন যখনই কেউ এগুলোকে হাত দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করেছে, আমরা যখনই গ্রামে গ্রামে গিয়ে বলতে পেরেছি দেখো এগুলোতে তোমার অধিকারকে বঞ্চিত তোমরা হচ্ছে আর কি, রুখে দাঁড়াও, মানুষ রুখে দাঁড়িয়েছে। এবং যারা বাধা দেয় আমরা দেখেছি, যখনই স্বৈরাচারী সরকারের দেশে এসেছে থেকেছে তারা এই জায়গায় বাধা দেয়, কিন্তু বাধা দিয়ে কেউ পার পায়নি। আমাকে যখন আপনি সবসময় আশাবাদ ব্যক্ত করেন, আমি বললাম আমি তো পিছনের দিকে তাকিয়ে দেখি কোনো স্বৈরাচার কোনোদিন এখানে সফল হয়নি, নোবডি বাট নোবডি। তো এখন আমি কেন এটা নিয়ে চিন্তা করবো? মানুষের কাছে আমরা যেতে হয়, যাব, আমরা তো মানুষ, আমরা তো, তুমি কথা এই যে বললে হোয়াট হ্যাজ গন রং, তুমি ভেঙেই বলে দিলে। আমি বলছি না, আমি রংও বলবো না, আমি বলি না হাউ ক্যান ইউ মেক ইট গো রাইট। আমরা আমাদের যেটা আকাঙ্ক্ষা সেটাকে বাস্তবে রূপান্তরিত করার জন্য করাটা কি? একটা তো বলবো যে জনগণকে মানে স্বেচ্ছায় ভোট দেওয়া নিশ্চিত করো, টাকা পয়সা যে বিশেষ করে কালো টাকার প্রভাব থেকে আমাদের মুক্ত করো। আজকে আমাদের সবচেয়ে বড় যেটা কি বলবো জনগণের ক্ষমতার বিরুদ্ধে যে শক্তিটা, হলো কালো টাকা। আমি অসুস্থ রাজনীতির কথা আমি অনেক বছর ধরে বলে আসছি, আর কালো টাকা আমি বলা শুরু করেছি কিন্তু সারা পৃথিবীতে কালো টাকা স্বীকৃত, যে শুধু আমাদের দেশে না, প্রত্যেক দেশই গণতন্ত্রের সবচেয়ে বড় শত্রু হলো কালো টাকা। Illicit money is the biggest threat to democracy, not only in our country but in so many countries. Where money is negating the real free exercise of choice and free exercise of people to choose their representatives. The elections are threatened by money. So these are issues that we can talk about because we have suffered and we have succeeded in overcoming it. This is the great thing. If you look at our history, and why I am optimistic is that this has been tried over and over again, but every time it has failed. If it is tried again, it will fail again. This is what should give you confidence.
Thank you. The lady in the back row, I think I saw a raised hand. Could you please ask me a question? We'll come back to you.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for a lovely session and discussion. I would like to have a question, and my question is to the panel, which is how can media help the judiciary in sensational cases like Marathon 7 murder? Thank you so much.
No way. I mean, that's another case where the court and the press and everybody was able to play a positive role, and it has had an outcome now. Within a year or two, you've got a judgment and sentences have been delivered and so on. So, it's interesting because I was in that case in the High Court and I got the order, which, as a result of which immediately on the next day, arrests were made and confessions miraculously followed. Which, I mean, I would say miraculously, I never imagined that would happen. That one day order for arrest, next day arrested, third day they all confessed. So it's a sensational 7 murder case, which, if you want to know our recent history, is worth hearing. And the conviction was taking place last month.
About 6 weeks ago.
6 weeks ago, that's right. Now, you were saying, what does that say? That says that prompt action, and because the press was very prompt in that because it was a sensational case. 7 people were murdered. And remarkably again, because I almost begin to believe in supernatural thing, they had bricks tied around them and thrown into the Shitalokha river. And miraculously, next morning, all 7 bodies floated out.
4 days later, Chatipur.
Now, this is against the laws of gravity. So, I mean, if you say that I don't believe, why do I believe in supernatural things? Because this defied the law of gravity.
They even tied bricks.
And the tidal strength of the river should have flown out. But instead of flowing out, it flowed onto the land. and the bodies were found.
Miracle.
Miracle.
Can't be explained scientifically.
To me, the bottom line is God exists.
Thank you.
This
Yes.
is why intervention. Yes.
Assalamualaikum. I am Abdul Rahman Jahangir, senior reporter of UNB. Sir, it is the responsibility
Senior reporter of
UNB. So it is the responsibility of the government to ensure press freedom of expression. But while the government gags media or establishes its control on media, can judiciary help overcome the problem and ensure freedom of press? And how will you evaluate the Bangladesh judiciary's role in ensuring freedom of press and freedom of expression in the recent years? As you are a political leader, I want to ask you another question from a political point of view. You are president of a party. Do you think the next election will be free and fair, and whether your party will join it?
Well, last question is easy. We want to do everything we can. We have been doing and we can continue to see that it is free and fair. Let us put out what we understand by fair. Let there be a discussion, because this discussion we had between 2007-2008, when an election was given by BNP on the 22nd of January 2007. We put out our points, 23 points, which Army League and all of us were part of a 14-party alliance. We drafted the 23 points, and Army League said, is it necessary to sign it? I said, absolutely necessary. It was done, we campaigned on that. I went to court, I got the voters list set aside because it had 10 million false votes. 1 koti 40 lakh false vote. And one court held that, appellate division upheld that. Election Commission, which had made that list, was found to be incompetent and they were dissolved. So that is how the election of 2008 was possible. It was all our effort, citizens' effort. And don't underestimate citizens' effort. Because I had to ring up, and some of us who were lawyers really, we rang up the Army League and said, look, we want you to come and file this petition. You have not done anything about it. So once I got one of my friends who was an MP to come and do it, then the General Secretary of Army League rang and said, I believe you are doing a writ petition, we want to file it. I said, come and give a signature. And they did, and that made critical difference. That's what I mean by activism. Some of the parties don't sometimes feel the need of this. Now I think the most active lobbying or campaigning you have to do in every district, with whoever is your MP, whoever the party people are in Army League and other parties. They shouldn't be sitting and, either thinking, oh, we will manage the election. They must understand that people will not accept a managed election either way. People want to exercise their right to vote, and it's not seditious to say, I want to vote properly. I want to be free from the effect of those people who will come and, with muscle and money. Of course, the muscle men you should be careful about, don't point to them too specifically, so that they then are provoked in using their muscle against you prematurely. But we have to get rid of this muscle and money. Say 160 to 65 million, that must be our population. We can't become hostages to muscle men or black money. It has not succeeded in the past, it will not succeed in the future, not even for a short while, because the cost is very high. So press, it's very good you're all press people. You should in a very constructive way say we want peace, we want stability, we want to see the tremendous prospects that we have of 6-8% growth. That can only happen if we have good governance, if we have rule of law, if we have independent judiciary, if we have our fundamental rights, speech, press, freedom, secured. And there's no argument about it. Say again, invoke Bangabandhu. You see, the government invokes Bangabandhu, right? You have posters of Bangabandhu every 5 yards, all over the city. I said, yes, you revere Bangabandhu, so do we all. This is what he said. That's how you can link up their publicity campaign with the Constitution. The picture you have there is not just a picture, he signed something. What has he signed? What did he promise? If you put up his pictures and want us to revere him, we want to see his promises redeemed. That's how you campaign for a free election.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think we should all stand up and give it, clap, Kamal Hossain. Just to conclude this session this way, on a very positive note, this message will come out loud and clear from this conference.
Thank you.
And we are very grateful to you.
Thank you.
And there are not only 2 M's, but I think 4 M's to that, money, manipulation also. We have manipulation as well, and also we need good administration. There are 4 M's to that. And this is a very good, very lively discussion, and young generations have been involved in this.
Excellent.
And I think they will continue to be involved and do something good for the nation, because the nation is in their hands, and the future leaders of the country. And I hope that with your inspiring words, they will get more motivated to work for the country, to progress in the country. And this 6-7% increase the rate of growth could have been better if there was good governance. And let's hope that with good governance, our growth rate will go up the roof. That's what we hope for.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Let's leave here and be energized and be active citizens. Thank you. We have refreshments on the road. Thank you.